When Miss Woodall asked me to speak to you at the 100 Days to Graduation Luncheon months and months ago, I was thrilled. Yes, I cried. They're my baby class. I love them. Wonderful, she said. You can talk about pretty much whatever you want. Yes, I thought to myself. Whatever I want. So I thought about it a lot. What did I want to say to you guys? Yeah! What could I share with you that you could possibly use? How could I impart some wisdom without devolving into cliché? The more I thought about it, the more daunting it became. They're all cliches. I went back to Miss Woodall for guidance. We discussed perspective as a possible topic. Perspective, so important and yet so hard to talk about without the dreaded cliches. Not to harp on cliches, they do tend to be true. Perspective is an interesting concept. The word itself can mean a lot of different things. The perspective I want to discuss is the kind that emerges when your ideas about the world have hit a wall, fought bravely, and in all probability, lost. It's a child of adversity, misunderstanding, confusion, and sometimes wonder. Unfortunately, it's not something we can just pass along, not if it's going to mean something. A few years ago, my aunt and I ran the Ocoee in a tandem canoe. Moments later, I'm balanced on the bumper trying to tie the boat to the top of the car. My whole body is tired and I'm soaked. I'm giving very serious consideration to stripping off the wet spandex, paddler style, between the two cars, when I make eye contact with a cute little blonde kid across the parking lot. I know that kid. It's Trey Robertson. It's me. Oh, right, I thought with a jolt of surprise. I'm a teacher. And suddenly, in that moment, even the spandex I had thankfully left on seemed skimpy. It was only a few short moments, standing there in my spandex chatting. And yet the change in my perspective that it facilitated was very powerful. I was a teacher, and I had to start acting like one all the time. But I haven't always been a teacher, nor did I plan to be. Many of you know this. My first job was manning an athletic office at the George Washington University. I asked what the job entailed. My supervisor said, "Answer the phone." It never rang. Then I moved to Athens, Georgia, where I finished my degree while working 2 real jobs. My first as a cashier at The Grill. Then the Mexican restaurant where I really wanted to work called me and hired me as well. That summer I worked from 8 to 4, then 5 to 11. Luckily, both jobs required black pants, so I just changed my shirt on my way, going from smelling like burgers to smelling like fajitas. When I graduated from UGA, I could read, write, and explicate medieval poems in Spanish, like a boss. But actually speaking Spanish was intimidating. So I made arrangements with a friend from the restaurant to work as a receptionist in his recently renovated hotel outside of La Fortuna, Costa Rica. Having just turned 23, I had hit my stride. I was mature, smart, and worldly. I was about to perfect my most marketable skill. I had my stuff together. So what happened there was unexpected. Unexpected because of my own expectations. Expectations, you guys, that I didn't even realize I had. Speaking would be difficult at first, but at least I'd be able to understand everything. It was a good idea to date a local guy. It was fine to hang out with another local guy, not my boyfriend. I would eventually begin to blend in. Not a chance. These weren't questions to me. They were self-evident truths. But nothing that I had read of Latin American cultural history, sociology, psychology, art, or literature had prepared me for the 7 months I spent there. No amount of reading about this town, at the base of an active volcano, popular with tourists, great hot springs, caves, and canopy tours, had given me the information about how to behave. And when I misbehaved, i.e. hung out with another guy in town who had been to school in Canada, spoke really good English, and also had a passion for canoeing, I was in big trouble. We all got over it, eventually, but my time in Costa Rica opened my eyes. A little. Then I moved back to DC, where I trained to become a medical interpreter. That's number 3 on my list, by the way. The number 1 thing I hear when I say I'm a Spanish teacher: I wish I'd paid attention in high school Spanish. But you didn't? Shocker. Number 2, so you speak Spanish then? Well, yes. Number 3, you could be a translator. You mean interpreter. And yes, I know, I hated it. I'm glad I did it then so that I know now. Too much time in hospitals. And let me tell you, being sick, without command of the English language or insurance, totally different ballgame. I then spent some time in Hungary. Living there 3 years, I can't list the number of unexpected things that happened, though I can now look back and recognize my own expectations. I won't go into those now, though I can tell you that I, a language person, never got past basic Hungarian. Talking to Hungarian students one day, I was told how the new thing was mixing red wine and Pepsi. Ew, I said. That sounds repulsive. One of the girls piped up. You think that's gross. You wouldn't believe what a customer asked me for the other day. He wanted root beer with a scoop of ice cream in it. Ew, they cried. That's disgusting. How could anyone eat something like that? Upon leaving Hungary, I wanted to spend some time with my brother, Richard, so I went to Japan before coming back to the US. I was 27 by this time, and not having any experience with Asian culture beyond my travels at 21, I had very few expectations for my 3-month stay. But even here, my most basic expectations were obliterated. In a small town in the Fukushima province amid rice fields and distant mountains, surely my brother would have insulation in his house. Of the 2 white squeeze tubes covered in kanji, this had to be the toothpaste. The 7-Eleven couldn't possibly have decent sushi. And there's no way a hot drink is coming out of a vending machine on the side of the road. Guess again. But in a way, this was all far less embarrassing than Costa Rica had been. Here, I was a stranger in a strange land. At least I had an excuse. So with a quick detour in Rotterdam, I was on my way home. I cleaned, organized, and put new flooring in the cottage on my parents' land in Thompson, and proceeded to live near them for the first time in 10 years. It was meant to be a quick pit stop, and here I am, 5 years later, somehow rooted in the town where I grew up, that I was so very anxious to get out of. People often ask me if it's weird to work here. Honestly, it's not. I remember so few of the details from high school, but the 3 years I spent here as a teenager will echo throughout my entire life. I came away from here with a critical eye, an inquisitive mind, and a desire to see the world. Since graduating from prep, I've traveled to Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Peru, England, France, the Netherlands, Germany, the Czech Republic, Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, Croatia, Italy, Spain, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, and Hong Kong, some of them multiple times. Traveling isn't the only way to get perspective, of course. It just tends to be the best way. Venturing outside your world is essentially leading your expectations to the slaughter. It can hurt, but results are guaranteed. Something that continues to amaze me about prep is how accepting we are, how much we appreciate diversity. As humans, we like to put people, ourselves included, into boxes, categories. For you guys, I will probably always be relegated to the teacher box. But teaching is something that I just happily fell into. A question I get every year from my students is, did you always want to be a teacher? Interpreted as, did you ever think you would be this lame? Oh, come on. You now know that the answer to that is no. Did I always plan on being a teacher? But as someone who entered the teaching profession very much from the outside, I can tell you that teaching is a lot more involved than it looks. And to be an excellent teacher is a labor of love. You have your ideas about your teachers, but the truth is you know much less about us than you think. That's how it's supposed to be. We are channels for your learning, and that doesn't require you to understand us, though it requires a great deal of understanding on our part, not to mention patience. Thank your teachers. We like to tell young people such as yourselves that you can be anything you want to be. I say that phrase is old hat. You can do anything you want to do. You don't have to be anything in the traditional sense anymore, like a firefighter or a lawyer or a columnist. The truth is, you don't have to decide now what you're going to do. If you're smart, willing to work hard, and can think critically, you can do almost anything. I've had jobs in hotels, restaurants, clinics, doing tutoring, teaching, interpreting, translating, editing, and in live television, behind the camera. And that's just in the last 15 years. What do all of these jobs have in common? Almost nothing. They're loosely bound by needing Spanish to do them. One passion can bind together a great many endeavors. As freshmen, it took you guys all of 5 minutes to decide who I was going to marry, what the wedding would be like, and whether or not me and my new husband's babies would be musical. Thanks to this class, I have heard some version of this fairy tale story every school day for the last 3.5 years. Good work. Over the last 4 years, I've had a lot of you ask me about getting married. Honestly, it's nobody's business. But let me take the opportunity to say this. My whole life, I thought I would get married at 26. Then I turned 26. My 26-year-old self thought she knew it all. So did my 28-year-old self, looking back and judging my 26-year-old self. My 30-year-old self did the same, and well, you get the picture. Finally, I decided it was silly to look back and judge myself every year, so now I just look back and laugh. But let's say I live to be 96. It seems reasonable these days. Even if I got married right now, at the right old age of 32, I would spend twice the amount of life I've already lived with one person. This is what society tells us to do. Fine. Just don't let the jewelry commercials and the Disney movies and the bridal boutiques sell you their version of the truth. Marriage is a big decision. And it's often made with only 2 to 5 years. It's often made with only 2 to 5 years of data to work with. Plus, the full development of the prefrontal cortex, which regulates complex cognitive behavior such as personality expression, decision-making, and the relationship between cause and effect, hello, is allegedly not fully developed until the age of 25. So, we are proud of you guys. This whole community is proud of you guys. It's been a real honor watching you grow and change and evolve. We, the people in this room, are part of the 1% who really have the chance to live our lives with integrity. We have everything we could ever want. Billions of people around the world wish every day for what we have. So be gracious. Be nice to the juniors. I know, they're the juniors, but they're taking your place. Okay? And you guys want to leave the school better than you found it. I love you all, and I'm very sad to see you go, but I think it's appropriate that we're all going our separate ways at the same time.